That recorded. Perfect. Thank you so much. Awesome. Alrighty. So we'll go ahead and get started. It is 7:35. But again, if you didn't get a chance, if you're just coming in, feel free to share your name, organization, and where you're coming from, what municipality you're coming from, or zooming in from today. As we get started, my name is Vanessa Gudel. Ooh, whoops. Sorry about that. There we go. My name is Vanessa Gudello. I am the organizer for Westchester Alliance for Sustainable Solutions, also known as WASS. And WASS is an alliance of community organizations from all over Westchester County, led by and centering Peekskill residents who are working to close a Wheelbrader Westchester incinerator, which is located here in Peekskill, where all of the county's trash is burned. For those of you who have joined us in the past, as you know, we typically have these zero waste task force meetings on a monthly basis. We really started them up earlier this year, with January having been our first zero waste task force meeting, really with the goal of wanting to bring together folks like you all, folks who are working on sustainability, who are working on your conservation advisory councils, and to create a space where we don't feel so siloed, so we can kind of harness that collective power and start to advocate for sustainable solutions together, so we can be effective and more strategic, and finally move our county closer to zero waste, so we can shut down the environmental justice that is, or environmental injustice that is, the Wheelbrader trash incinerator. So we're very happy to have you all here. And today we are going to be speaking about food scraps. Every month we have a different topic. WASS works on all different levels of government. We do advocacy on a local level, county level, state level, a federal level, and we often have speakers and topics that reflect those different levels of advocacy. But this month we really wanted to highlight you all for all the work that you have been doing in your locality to move forward food scraps and get food scraps out of our incinerator, because we know a big bulk of the waste that is being burned in Peekskill is something that we can make great use of, and that the county has been kind of setting forth a path so different municipalities can kind of tap into those resources as well. And we really want to hear from folks who are on the ground to hear more about how those programs have been kind of mapping out, where there can be improvements, where there have been kind of hiccups or obstacles, and perhaps you all can learn ways in which you can bring composting, a food scraps program to your local municipality as well. So with that, I just want to really quickly go over the agenda. So we do have 4 community speakers here with us today who are going to be speaking more about their local food scraps program. We have Kay Bartholomew from Peekskill, Anthony Carbone from Cortland, Sue McNamara from Yonkers, and Linda McKay from Rye. Each person is going to have about 5 minutes to speak. I ask all of you who are listening, if you have questions, please refrain from asking your questions until the very end. If you don't want to forget it and you want to type it in the chat and you want to say question for Sue and then your question, that'll probably be the best way to keep track of them. But after everyone has gone, we will open it up. It is going to be kind of a very informal 20 to 30 minute kind of discussion for all of you all to share your thoughts, ask your questions, and also for the speakers and any of you who are working on a food scraps program who isn't listed on this slide deck right now will also have the opportunity to speak and tell us about the program that you're working on and the progress that you've made, because really that is the purpose of the space. We want to learn from each other. We want to learn what's working, what isn't, and how we can work together. So with that, I'm gonna hand it off to our first speaker, and that's Kay Bartholomew from the Peekskill Conservation Advisory Council. Kay, I'll pass it over to you.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, okay, hi. Thank you so much for having me in this group. I am very much a fan of food scraps recycling and have been working on this for 5 or 6 years. The first thing we did was hear about this wonderful person, Michelle Sterling in Scarsdale. So a group of CAC members, along with city representatives, visited the site in Scarsdale where people bring their food scraps. And that was at least 5 years ago. They were very gracious to share their signage and their sources for kitchen containers, etc. And then we got to work talking to the people that can make the decision in Peekskill. We went through 2 city managers. I have to say that there's been quite a bit of resistance to this idea. We do finally have a bare bones program, but people have to bring their food scraps on Saturday morning between 9 and 12 o'clock to the DPW yard. And it is, no matter what we say, we have signage and there's 2 toters there, and people do bring their things there, myself included. And I always meet other people there, but it's really not a good site at all. It is dangerous to drive in there. It's very disgusting where they have the toters. And I applaud the people that are doing it, but we are working really hard trying to get the city staff to make this more workable. We have developed a brochure based on the Scarsdale information, and we have done some outreach, but not nearly enough. We need to do that next. So we don't have any pickup program. We only have 4 hours on Saturday morning when people have to drive, really. They'd be very difficult to walk there with their food scraps. I personally have had wonderful information passed to me as a member of the CAC from Anthony Carbone. Hi, Anthony. He very graciously gave us a tour of his facility in Cortland. And we also visited the facility that Westchester County has near what is it, near the prison and the hospital. It's a really, really great program. If you need to educate anybody, you go there and they show you exactly how the process works. They give you samples of the compost that is the result. In my household, my husband and I live together. We cook a lot. We have so little regular garbage left because we recycle, of course, paper and plastic. And then we just have one little bag of garbage. It is tremendously beneficial to this effort to reduce the amount of garbage that goes to Wheelabrator. And I highly encourage all of you to work hard with your communities. From what I can see, every community is different and requires a determination and information to educate the people that make the decisions about these things. So I encourage all of you to keep at it, whatever you're doing. I thank Westchester County for initiating the pickup of the toters, the contents of the toters, through an intermunicipal agreement, and which is being renewed now in Peekskill. So we feel very happy that we have a program at all, but we hope very much to expand it and to communicate with our citizens, because there's a lot of interest. Many people want to do this, but we'll just keep at it. So thank you very much for listening, and I'd be happy to take any questions later. Good luck.
Thanks so much, Kay. Really appreciate you having here. And we're excited that Peekskill's finally got their food scraps program up and running and hoping to see it expand. So thank you for all your hard work on that.
You're welcome.
Next we have Anthony Carbone from Cortland.
Hi, everyone. Anthony Carbone. I'm representing the town of Cortland CAC, but I also am representing CRP Sanitation. We are the hauler for the Westchester County program, and also representing Sustainable Materials Management. We are the composting facility in Cortland that does all the composting. So where all the food scraps are being delivered to every week. Our story is similar to Kay. I didn't even know about food scrap recycling until an event in Peekskill that 10 years ago now. It's crazy how time flies, but it was an event that the Peekskill Brewery threw 10 years ago. It was the Hudson Hop and Harvest Festival, and they wanted to make it a zero waste event. And we were their trash hauler. So they reached out to us and said, we want to make this a zero waste event. How can we do it? And in conversations with them, the only composting facility was up in Kingston. So that was an hour and a half one way by truck from Peekskill. So I went up there, took a tour of their facility, and I was like, wow, this is pretty low tech to actually do the actual composting. I was like, we could do that in Westchester, population of 1 million people. And that's where we started, investigating, what it would take to get the facility open. That took 6 years with no opposition to get the facility open. So, I mean, if anybody would have had any opposition, we never probably would have gotten it open. But it was 6 years of red tape just to get it open with no local opposition. Once we did get it open, we decided to host the town of Cortland's food scrap drop off, which it started off. This was before the county program it was even a thing. And we started off with 1 tote pail. Now we're up to 5 tote pails every week. This was, people would have to sign up, and we have over 100 people now. It's in the last few months, it's really taken off. We have over 100 people coming a week to drop off their food scraps at our facility. And then on the town of Cortland side, the town of Cortland now is looking to expand that, because the town of Cortland area wise is very big. And where we are, we're kind of off the beaten path, going up towards the Bear Mountain Bridge. And you could be 10 or 15 minutes away from an address that's in the town of Cortland. So that's, that's a 30-minute round trip for somebody that, where our hours are pretty expansive. We're there 6 days a week, but it's still a 25-minute drive for somebody to go there and back, So now the town of Cortland, we're looking at having two additional drop spots. So that would be three drop spots in the town of Cortland itself. So we think that would be good to open it up to even more residents. We have one in Croton, which is not technically town of Cortland, but we would have Croton, 2 additional in Cortland, and then our facility, which is private, but it's still free. So we're excited about that. When we were trying to get this thing off the ground, there was some lessons that I learned, some things that I that be happy to share. You're going to get some pushback from DPW folks. There's a lot that goes into DPW departments. A lot of the times they're overworked, underpaid. A lot of the times they're working without a contract for an extended period of time. So you have an entire department that might be working without a contract, and then you're going to ask them to do more stuff. So you get pushback, but the reality is it's only, keeping the site clean where they have these drop-off spots. It's 2 minutes of work a day. It's really not that much to keep it clean. You check the pails every day, you change the liners. It's really not, it's not a full-time job for somebody. It's a few minutes. So that's something that can easily be set aside. Odors can be managed. Rodents can be managed if the site is kept clean. It's, these are things, if it was just garbage sitting there for 2 weeks, you'd have odors and you'd have garbage. I mean, you'd have odors and you have rodents. So it's not just for food scraps. It's if anything was sitting there rotting away for 2 weeks, you'd have those same issues. So it's not just exclusive to food scraps. So that if it's managed well, it could be mitigated. On the political side, I kind of, never really paid attention to politics going into this, but I've noticed that, come election season, a lot of politicians like to talk about things that they've done. And, if you can get a politician to sign on to something like this, that can be a feather in their cap that, hey, we did this. Or you can take the opposing view, and if somebody's trying to get into office, and you can latch on to that candidate, and that candidate can say what the incumbent hasn't done. So, there's opportunities on both sides of the political arena to try and get something accomplished or get something started at least. There's 2 seasons that, election season and then the Earth Day season, where a politician will like to get in front of a camera and do a giveaway or, have a camera there and talk about something. So the election season is one, Earth Day season is another, where you can kind of get a lot of traction, get a lot of people to sign up or participate, and that's how you having a program, a nice way of expanding the program. What else do I have? Schools. Another great way of expanding it is to get into the schools. A lot of the communities that have very successful programs, they're in their schools. The kids are doing it in school, K through 12. They're going home and they're saying, Mom, Dad, how come we're not doing this at home? We're doing it at school. And it is what it is. They may be guilting their parents into doing it, but they're doing it. So it's just another way of expanding. So now it's happening in schools, it's happening at your drop spot. You're going to get to a point where the drop spot now can't handle enough. And then the next step will be doing something curbside where now everybody can do it. If you have multiple drop spots that are very successful, now you can expand it to a curbside program. I think in Westchester now there's two or three municipalities that are going with, have some type of a curbside program, either coming on board soon or already happening. So those are good things to, just keep expanding it. And then once it gets to that point where you have a curbside program, like Kay said, your amount of trash is going to be reduced by so much. You could go, if all the municipalities got together and we had a once a week food scrap pickup and a once a week recycling pickup, you wouldn't need twice a week trash pickup. You'd only need once a week trash pickup, if that. Toronto, Canada, they do once a week food, once a week recycling, and their trash gets picked up every other week because there's no trash left. If you pull out the food, pull out the recycling, pull out the cardboard, and what you're left with is very light, very fluffy, and it doesn't really need to get picked up every week. So those are some ideas for starting a program, expanding a program, and even taking the next steps to go into curbside.
Thank you so much, Anthony. We really appreciate all your for sharing your experience and for all the hard work you've done to really expand composting here in Westchester. So big thank you. Next, we have Sue McNamara from Yonkers. So I'll pass it over to you.
Okay, thank you. Wow, very different story in Yonkers. So what we're doing, can everyone hear me okay? Okay. It was interesting to hear Anthony and Kay. Mayor Spano from Yonkers announced the food scrap program, voluntary food scrap program on January 1st. He had a picture of himself doing food compost in a bin in his kitchen. And I said, oh my goodness, this is great, because I live in a co-op in Yonkers. It's called the Greystone. And we have 200 families. And about 5 of us were bringing our food scraps. We were doing it voluntarily, but Yonkers did not have a place to dump it. So we were bringing our food scraps to Hastings. So this is our core little friends group of 5 people. And that was in January. And we've been doing it for a few years. Now, Hastings we're not really supposed to bring our food scraps to Hastings, but it didn't matter. So when Yonkers announced the opening of our facility on Sawmill River Road, which is only about a 10-minute drive from us, we were excited and we went to look at it. And I couldn't get other people to be interested in driving over there to dump it. So we said, what if we hired someone to pick up all of our food scraps and take it there? Long story short, Yonkers did not want us to hire anybody. But after conversations with the Department of Public Works, and I love them dearly, I know them all now, they said, well, we aren't getting that many people to drop off. So I said, well, if you could pick it up in our building, that would be the best. They said, well, you know what? I think we're going to have a pilot program to see if that works. I said, well, if you have a pilot program, we want to be the building where you pick up. Okay. So we had a site inspection by DPW. Our super was there, one of the staff, and we figured out where the best place to site the can was, which actually was we have an indoor garage. It's indoor some people don't like the spot, but it's fine. In the summer, it was a little smelly, but at least there's air that goes in and out. So I'll just give you the basics. So we started this within a few months. We got the board to sign off on it because of the imprint of the city sponsoring it. We said, we are going to be the #1 building in Yonkers to do this pilot program. And then I kind of said, it might be mandatory next year, so let's get in on the ground floor. So I just want to say, May 15th, we put out flyers. May 15th, Yonkers begins the curbside pickup at the Greystone, Tuesday and Friday. And we were thrilled, but we still only had 10 people now. We had, word of mouth. Yonkers was giving us free bins and bags. So we got 2 bins, the small one and the large one, and a supply of 2 months worth of bags. So this was like a free thing. Everybody was pretty excited. We had a meeting in the community room. Wait 1 second. And it went well. May 15th to May 31st, we picked up 770 pounds from our building. We had about 10 families. Little by little, we had meetings, word of mouth. We talked to a lot of people in the summer. Yonkers gave us 75 bins to hand out. Now, that was a challenge. But I'll skip to the end because we had a lot of flyers that we put up. In June, we did 2,000 pounds. In July, a lot of people might have been on vacation, but we only did 1,400 pounds. August, we were back up to 2,000 pounds. And I just got the numbers for September. And it was 3,745 pounds. So that is how much food scraps we're picking up. And, I have to say it is a win, win, win. The Yonkers mayor is thrilled. They had a press conference in front of our building touting how wonderful this program is. And now they were going to expand it to some neighboring buildings. First, they said they were going to try south side of Yonkers. I have to get some water. Sorry. Talking too much.
No worries at all.
Anyway, I'll wait for your questions because honestly, it wasn't really that hard. And but we did have to convince people who had never heard of food scraps. Never. They hadn't thought about it. And we have trash compactors. So as Kay said, as soon as people started doing it and they said, oh, wow, we have so much less garbage, it was like, oh, this is a revelation, and it doesn't smell. It was just like, it was wonderful. So we have 61 families signed up now, or, households. So that's a lot of garbage. And what I wrote on the flyer, that it was 3,007, the total is something like, I don't know, 8,000 pounds, but this is that many pounds removed from our compactor chutes, removed from the Westchester incinerator, and transformed into useful compost for Westchester Parks and Recreation. So that's pretty much it.
Thank you so much.
Grateful to this group for instilling, and really it was Hastings was the first community that, or maybe they were not the first, but they were really very helpful to us.
Thank you so much, Susan. We thank you so much for sharing your experience. Big congratulations to all the great work done. And thank you. I mean, as they say, if you build it, they will come. But you have to communicate that they're building it, right? And thank you for all the hard work you and the folks at Greystone did to ensure that this pilot program could be a model for the rest of Westchester, because that's what we can do. We can say that it was successful in one place.
Right.
And hopefully it can be successful all over, right? That's what we got to, that's the convincing we got to do of our political officials. But thank you so much, Susan. Next, we have Linda McKay from Rye.
Hi, thanks for having me. I've been working with Rye Sustainability Committee for about 8 years, and we were the same as, I guess, Yonkers, right? or Peekskill, I can't remember who said they met Ron and Michelle, maybe it was Kay, at from Scarsdale. So Ron and Michelle gave us back in 2017, my member Patty Caparelli and I saw their presentation, and then we pretty much took their template to our committee and to the City of Rye City Council. And knowing our city and that they don't like to spend on anything, we found out in 2018 that we could get a grant, and you can still get these. So NYSERDA offers a program called Clean Energy Community. And what we did was you have to do 4 high priority actions that are environmentally friendly, which we had already done. We just had to document it. And we got help from the coordinator, and she walked us through, and it was very easy. And we got the $5,000 just right away to use for buying the buckets and the bags. And so the city didn't have to put up any money up front. And what we did was publicize it on Facebook. And Patty and I did a video about food scrap recycling. And we got on the Rye Moms Facebook page. I mean, it's just get in touch with the women in charge of the households, that they're the ones that are going to do this. So that really helped us. So by the time DPW in Rye, it's only 15,000 people. We have garbage pickup twice a week, and we have the green waste pickup also once a week. And our engineer said, I can do curbside pilot program. So why don't we roll this all out together? And I can do 150 households curbside, and we can open a drop-off at our DPW. So I guess it was March of 2019 that we finally opened the drop-off with 10 toters. And we started, we had a sign up online, and we publicized it. And it was like Christmas morning. Within 1 hour, we had 150 people sign up, and they each paid $52 for the year. And then they also had to pay for the kit, was $20 for the kitchen toter, the bigger toter that would go curbside, and the bags. And we all, the members of the sustainability committee, we worked at DPW for a month, all of us taking turns. Everyone would come in and we would educate them. They'd pay their check and get their buckets, and we would take pictures and put it on our Facebook and Instagram. I think social media is key to reaching your constituents. And I would do Instagram stories, and kids and dogs and everyone, and local officials, whoever came to sign up. So we really publicized it, and they would have to sign up. So we kept track of the signups, and I guess we have by 2022, we were up against the city council on whether to renew the pilot program, because it had been through COVID, it had to be suspended, and then it was back. And the current mayor was not a fan. So it was really difficult politically. But we had over 670 families, households signed up. When we went into the council meeting to say, please, let's expand curbside. Everyone who does this says the same thing you all were saying before me. You have no garbage. We can do garbage one day, food scraps the next. Let's make this happen. The wait list that we keep track of, our committee did this. Patty and I kept track, and every name and every email and every person was entered in a database. And we had over 250 people on the wait list for curbside. So we had a lot of, in a small little municipality, that's a lot of people that are on board. But they voted it down. They didn't want to expand curbside in 2022. They said, we will open a second drop-off spot. I mean, it's 5 square miles, but people in Rye didn't want to drive to the one drop-off spot. They wanted one in town. I mean, when I hear you guys talk about how far away some people are driving just to drop off, it's a different mentality in Rye. I love the people dearly here, but seriously, it was crazy. But now we have 2 drop-off spots, and we were doing with the pickup, just 150 households was 1,000. And then the one drop-off was 1,000 a week that we were taking to the municipal transfer station. And then Westchester got on board, and we thought, wow, $10 versus 30 to take it to the Wheelabrator. This is really going to help us get it passed and expanded. It didn't. So it really is, as you know, Anthony was saying, you got to work with the political people the best you can. So during the pilot program, they had each driver, one would pick up, the other had his iPad to say how much was in the bucket, if it was out. They were and weights every week, and they were saying to us, well, not enough people put it out every week, and maybe during the summer it wasn't as much, and they had every excuse to, and they would say, well, we don't want it carted. And we'd say, but it's carted with every other municipality in a giant, container truck. No, it's just a waste to be carting it up to Ulster or even to Sustainable Materials, which is really where most of it goes. And it's closer than Peekskill, the Wheelabrator. But anyway, it's still going strong. And so we lost one battle, but we did not lose the war. We're still on it. Our current committee is more interested in maybe doing something on site at DPW and using our own food scraps to create it's not compost, it's kind of a soil amendment that's very similar to compost, but then we can use it ourselves. And then there's no issues with the emissions and trucks and all the things that the council said was really a problem in their eyes, and not enough, and they weren't interested in making it mandatory like recycling. And that's how it really should be. In my opinion, you just get it going. And before you know it, everyone's going to say, oh, wow, yeah, I don't have any garbage. Yeah, once a week is fine. It's very hard to take anything away. We had 2 pickups a week, and people like those 2 pickups of garbage. So it's about changing mentality and changing people's habits. And that's hard, and we all know it. But I applaud everyone doing it, and keep going. And I think that was everything. I'll take any questions after.
Thank you so much, Linda. We really appreciate all your hard work. And it's so incredible to hear all the diverse different experiences folks have had in their different communities, with officials who are very supportive, provide all the resources, and then kind of on the other side of the spectrum. But what I do think is the commonality amongst all the people who spoke is that you all are very persistent, right? We have to be persistent in ensuring that these programs are expanded and move forward. Because unfortunately, not all elected officials understand the positive impact a composting program can make, not just in their small community, but on an environmental level. In the case of kind of eliminating a ton of the air pollution that's coming from the Wheelabrator, but also on the financial level, right? We could be saving so much money, and it's unfortunately our job to have to convince them of these really incredible ideas, even though it should be their job to just go ahead and do it and ensure that we have access to this. So I just want to show my appreciation to you all for really making it happen and moving these folks in that direction. But with that, I do want to open it up to any questions or comments, or if there's any folks who are here who have also started to or have started a composting food scraps program in their local area. We'd love to hear from you and hear If you have had similar experiences, different experiences, feel free to raise your hand. I will be taking raised hand questions and comments first, and then I'll move over to the chat. So I'm seeing Courtney Williams. You've had your hand up.
Thanks, Vanessa, and thank you everybody who joined today. And I do just want to add for folks that, you know, one of the reasons why it's so critical to get food scraps out of the trash is because they're wet. And you know, so when you're thinking about burning garbage, the incinerator has to burn really hot in order to be effective and make the ash that it, the toxic ash that it makes. And with food scraps being very wet, it's hard for them with just burning garbage to get that temperature. So I got my start in this kind of environmental justice work fighting a gas pipeline. And don't you know that it's fracked gas that Wheelabrator uses to get those high temperatures when they have to burn a lot of wet stuff. So, you know, not only are we preventing the emissions from Wheelabrator, but by diverting these food scraps, we're also preventing all of the fracking and all of the associated emissions from that. That would need to happen in order to burn our food waste. So it's kind of like a double benefit for our planet. And then certainly for the people in Peekskill, because we have the Algonquin pipeline here. So it's really just a win-win no matter how you cut it.
Thanks, Courtney. Next person whose hand I see up is Nicole Foreman.
Okay, great. Thank you. So forgive me, I'm shamelessly trying to go early because I have a bedtime that for my son I'm trying to make. But so thank you all tremendously for sharing your experiences. So my situation, I'm just a community advocate, but I do have, my affiliation is with Our Healthy Yards in New Rochelle. But I am specifically focused on as a composting lead. Up until this point, it's been a lot about backyard composting. I've partnered with Peter McCart doing backyard composter cells and things like that. New Rochelle is finally, I heard from the head of DPW maybe 2 weeks ago, they are implementing organic waste and food scrap drop off in New Rochelle first quarter of 2024. He said it in a public setting. I asked the question, and so he says it's coming. But my concern is, I think the lady that just spoke with Rye emphasized my concern is about bringing the residents of New Rochelle along with that. We are much bigger. I don't know the numbers, but we are one of the biggest municipalities, huge demographic, huge difference. So I guess what I'm kind of asking is any best practices. I mean, I'm not a social media person. I work full-time community, and Our Healthy Yards, we have a Facebook page, but we don't have people posting and things like that. But I kind of want to go to the city, like an official letter from Healthy Yards, kind of saying, maybe like stating something about we do partnership education with the library, or somebody spoke about preparing for Earth Day. I have ideas, but I guess probably more of my question is there's somebody that maybe I could speak to offline, kind of plant a seed here, but we don't have a lot of manpower just to be posting a lot, but I welcome any guidance you could give, so that I can go to the city for advocacy, getting ahead, a partnership with a community partner to educate, bring people along, get these kitchen scrap collection bins and households and things like that. So that's, yeah, I see. Almost time. That's it. I'm going to mute. I may go off camera, but I'm listening, and please.
Hello.
Okay.
Thanks, Nicole.
Yeah, so Nicole and I emailed, because Peekskill also worked with Peter McCart to do the composter sale. So Nicole, I have your email, and I'm drafting you one right now to put you in touch with some other New Rochelle people that could help with this.
And I also want to open it up to any of our panelists if they want to give any advice. Linda, I see you went off mute.
I would say what helped us a lot was presence at our farmers market. Every Sunday, we were there with a booth and with our kits, and every community event, every school fair, tons of signups. get involved, yes, with the school, the PTO, we have a YMCA that has a like healthy committee, and get the city to put it on their website, which is what we have them do.
Thanks, Linda. Susan?
I really think we have to stress that it's a Westchester initiative, and that when you go to this city, that this is something that is really being championed by our Westchester officials. And not only that, but they are, I mean, somebody asked me about saving money, and there is a big money savings in here for each of the municipalities. So they get charged for dropping poundage off at the Wheelabrator, and if they are dropping off less poundage, so I think New Rochelle has to go to their officials. Everyone has to go to their officials and say, this is a Westchester County, and go to your county legislators also, not just the city. Yonkers is getting, our pickups are being done by a Westchester County vehicle.
Thanks, Susan. I see we have a couple hands still up, and I know there's some questions in the chat. Jen Horitz?
Oh, hi. Yes, I actually did put my question in the chat. Wasn't sure if anyone was monitoring. What is I may have missed it because I came in a little bit late, but what is the infrastructure that we have as far as where compostables are going, and what quantity, can we build up? Like, how quickly can we build up to what number?
Do any of our folks want to take that, Anthony?
I can take it. Yeah. So there are a few compost facilities that just handle yard waste in Westchester County. 5 or 6, maybe. There's only one, which is our facility, that handles food scraps. The next closest 2 facilities there's like a Nestle facility in Connecticut. I think it's called New Milford Farms, and equidistant is the Kingston Ulster County facility from us. So I've told people we probably could open up a compost facility in every municipality and make it real easy for everybody. But NIMBY and all that, our facility, if anybody wants to come take a tour of our facility, we're over a mile from the nearest residence. So perfect facility, siting for a compost facility. There was no outcry or anything like that when we were going through the permitting process. But, everyone always says the best thing to manage your waste is to manage it locally. And, we could put a composting facility in every town, and every town could manage their waste. It's instead of, trucking it to Peekskill or Seneca Meadows to a landfill upstate. It's when you pay attention to how much waste you're throwing out, you tend to, I've thrown out 3 bananas every week. You tend to, the following week you buy 3 less bananas. So food waste, it is waste. If it's before you eat it, that's what we did in our house. You kind of change your purchasing habits a little bit too, so you're wasting less. There's obviously there's the bones and other stuff that are inedible, but it's part of seeing how much you're throwing away is to kind of change your the amount of waste that you're creating.
Thanks, Anthony. And Neil?
Yeah, I want to underscore what Mary Ho just put in the chat, that it's not just the weight, reduced weight at the incinerator, it's reduced hauling weight as well. And the goal is to reduce a route. Usually a city has 8, 9, 10, in a big city, 40 routes, or maybe more. New York City has hundreds. But once you eliminate a route, that's where your saving comes in both labor as well as a truck and all that goes into it. And if I could take less than a minute, I just want to say that this is quite a wonderful webinar. I'm on vacation, but my wife let me join this meeting for a bit. And it's terrific because what I see here is exactly what happened to get recycling started. People organized, mostly women, back in the 70s, late 60s. And from drop off, it went to collection, community collection. Then the cities were forced to take over by the 80s. And what you're doing and what citizens across the country are doing is the same thing. So I would say that within 5 years, just like recycling, wherever the city has a recycling program, that municipality or township will have a composting program, not because they wanted to, but because we made you and we all made it inconvenient for them not to do it, because we showed them the logic of it, the environmental logic, and bottom line, the cost savings. And if I could finally emphasize what Anthony said, well, you all know about politicians. You just have to vote for the people who want to do these things. And those that don't, you have to put a lot of pressure on them, which is what you're doing. And it's great to see. Thanks.
Thanks, Neil. And Susan, I see you have your hand up. I don't know if you wanted to respond to that.
Yes, thank you. One of the things that our mayor said at the press conference was that the Greystone building, and this was in June, when we had done 2,000 pounds, he said our building did more than all of Yonkers combined at drop-off. Now, that says something about what the city is doing. They're not really expanding it. We're doing the heavy lifting, and they're receiving it, but they have 20 containers there and nobody's using them. So, I mean, I want to get it in buildings, because we have built-in, we have the density. Where you have density, we don't have, I mean, yes, it's nice to live in Rye where you can have curbside pickup of everything, but that's going to be a harder ask. And I could see the people worrying about that. So, I think we should go with where there's a lot of density. So that's it.
Thanks, Susan. And I see we have questions from Kent. Kent Thomas, I see your hands up.
Hi, I'm from the town of Newcastle. We implemented our food scrap recycling in 2017. But the issue we're really having now is our town is rather large and spread out. So our west end is over 7 miles from the recycling center, the furthest residence. And for them to go in and drop off scraps there and go back takes them quite a while. It's probably also uses a lot of energy in the meantime. But we've had requests from them, but the town administration has kind of shut it down for various reasons, which would be vermin, which would be contamination, and those kinds of things. So I know Rye said that they had, I guess, a satellite location, and Anthony's talking about potentially having ones in Cortland. What do you do to mitigate those issues, and in whether they're real or whether they're just in the minds of the officials? And do you have sites that in fact can act as a model that we could look at and use?
Thanks, Ken. Linda, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say what helped a lot in Rye was the big toters now have a little lock that on top of it that you have to just switch it to be able to open the top and then put it down, and that really keeps the animals from getting to it.
So is the facility open at all times or during a certain period of the day? And then does somebody come and close it up like at the end of the day, like lock the toters? Or?
No, it's 24/7, both locations. We do get a fair amount of contamination. I've been there and seen plastic and curtain rods and crazy things that I report to DPW, and they go clean it up because they have a camera, but they can only do so much.
Right.
One thing that we do at our facility, and I haven't seen it at any of the other facilities. They may have it. I just haven't seen it yet. So we have our 4 or 5 food scrap toters, but next to the food scrap toters, I have labeled a recycling toter and I have labeled a trash toter, because sometimes people, I have no requirement on how you deliver the food scraps to me. It could be in a garbage bag, it could be in a paper bag. So sometimes people are coming with a trash bag with the food scraps in it. They're dumping the food scraps in the food scrap container loose. And then I have a a garbage pail for their trash bag there. So I just have that available in case people need to use it, and people are using it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Anthony. John Rath?
Thank you. This is great. I'm in Poughkeepsie and Dutchess County. We have an incinerator that's not far from here that is putting the same lousy stuff in the air that I think you have. But my question is, like it or not, elected officials like to hear from stuffed shirts and corporate officials and school superintendents and things like that. Has anyone tried, or are there any corporations in Westchester that are doing composting that could be recruited to help make presentations, or maybe school superintendents?
Thanks, John.
I know IBM down in Yorktown is composting all their food scraps. Regeneron down in Terrytown, they're composting all their food scraps. I believe all those are both coming to our facility. So those are two major corporations that are doing it successfully. IBM has a garden on site. They're buying compost from us in the spring, and they have a garden for their food service people have a garden that people from IBM use the garden, the food service people use the garden. Compost from our facility is going into that garden. So they're doing the whole full circle thing there down at IBM. I'm not sure about Regeneron specifics, but I know they're doing it as well.
I was going to say, John, I don't know if you have a Whole Foods near you, but I know the Whole Foods in Portchester here next to Rye, they do food scrap recycling. And if you have not been in touch with your schools, our school system used We Future Cycle, and they came into the school, and all 3 elementary schools are food scrap recycling. Middle school and high school, I think they're getting on board soon, but they may be able to help you.
And we actually had Anna from We Future Cycle speak at our Lab Zero Waste Task Force meeting in September. So John, that's posted on YouTube. Feel free to watch that back, and we'd also be happy to put you in contact with her as well. I do want to recognize that we may run a little bit over time, but I want to make sure we get through some of the questions in the chat. One of the questions we have is, what is the main reason DPWs all over resist food scrap recycling? We have the same problem in Harrison, and this is coming from Janice Kaplan.
I'll take that. I'll take that one. It's getting somebody to do an additional job. It's changing their job. It may not be, idealistically, it might not be something that they agree with. They may not have a contract. This DPWs are, it's complicated. But they're also employees. And if you have a DPW supervisor who says, this is what we're doing, they're going to do it. We were picking up in White Plains, and the gentleman that was managing the tote pails in White Plains is actually doing their own composting now. They're doing it in-house. So the gentleman that was cleaning the toters every week said, to our guy that was on our last pickup there, this guy thinks I'm going to be the one that's going to be doing the composting, or I'm going to be doing this mixing or whatever. And he had like an attitude about it, but they're doing it. He said he wasn't going to do it, but when push came to shove, his boss said, we're doing it. So whether that's the DPW supervisor or the mayor or however it flows downhill, it's a job,
Thanks, Anthony. Susan?
Yeah, what we said is that it's the same amount of garbage altogether. So it's just a matter of segmenting it. And when we were trying to convince our staff, who, really, it is a little more work for them, I have to say. It is, they have to clean out the large bin, but it's so much less work now Yonkers has a new rule that all of the black bags have for garbage have to be put in I forget what they're called, big bins. What are they called? Like trailers or something. And so now there's not a lot of black bags left on the curbside. It's much better. It's much more rodent proof. But the point is, everyone is saying, oh, it's making more garbage. No, it's not making more garbage. And I just keep saying that over and over. It's taking it out of our compactors, which is really a kind of a messy system. And it's, of course, reducing plastic because we use compost bags. We don't just put it in loose. And I think that's a good way to go. But I think whoever said that it was like that when it started out for recycling, I kind of agree with that. It is going to be, we got to just push that up the mountain.
Thanks, Susan. It looks like we have another question for Anthony from Daria. When the compost is finished, where's the final product going?
Yeah, so we're selling it to municipalities. So there's 6 or 7 municipalities now that are buying bulk orders of our compost, and they're giving it back to their community on Earth Day. So they'll have like an Earth Day event where you can come with your car or your truck and you can take however much compost they say. So the municipality purchase it from us, and then they're just doing a giveaway to everybody. There's quite a few that are doing that. Landscapers are purchasing it. School systems are purchasing it. Compost is, if anybody's never seen Kiss the Ground, the Woody Harrelson Netflix show, I mean, we could do a whole other Zoom on just the benefits of using compost and how compost is a carbon sink and it takes carbon out of the atmosphere and puts it back into the ground, and the benefits for the soil and the roots. And you could do another 2 hours just on the benefits of compost. School systems where their fields get heavy use and the fields get compacted. Compost is very light and fluffy, so it reduces the compaction of their turf fields. So there's just, everybody could use compost. Vegetable gardens, house plants, turf establishment, turf repair, steep slopes, everything. Like there's just so many. Those are just a few things where compost, is used and can benefit.
Thanks so much, Anthony. Now we have a question from Mary Hogue. Is waste removal, or no, does cost decrease for folks for refuse removal? And then kind of a follow-up question that is also similar, is waste removal included in taxes or privately paid to haulers? This might be kind of a case-by-case basis.
It is. I know in Rye, it's part of our taxes, and we have our own, DPW we own all the trucks. And so it is a little different.
So I think Westchester, if there's 40 or so municipalities, refuse district number 1, I think, is like 40 of those 47 municipalities, and it excludes Newcastle, North Castle, Pound Ridge, Somers, like a lot of the northeastern part of the county. They're not part of the refuse district. So those municipalities, kind of like, either they have their own municipal pickup, or you have to pay for your own private hauler. But the other municipalities that are part of the refuse district, it's in our county tax bill. And then the county bills the municipalities for the tip fees of everything that gets deposited at the transfer stations and gets sent up to Wheelabrator.
Thanks, Anthony. Neil, you have your hand. Did you want to respond to that, Neil?
No, but I I would like to respond to the note that Courtney put in the chat a few minutes ago, that the logic of putting a county just to ban organic from the waste stream and allow it to invest in all the infrastructure that you need. And I wanted, that was her suggestion, not mine, but I want to point out that in Montgomery County, Maryland, which is just outside of Washington, D.C., it's quite similar to Westchester County. the county executive wants to shut down the incinerator, and we're working with him on implementing that shutdown plan. And the first step is getting organics out of the waste stream, because it's such a large portion of the waste stream, 30, 35, in some communities, 40%, probably not up in Westchester where there's not year-round growth. But I just strategically thinking, getting the organics out of the waste stream is great for obvious reasons, what we've been talking about, but it's also the first step to shutting down the incinerator.
Thanks, Neil. Yes, and we want to make sure I mean, I know WASS, we're working to ensure that we're fighting for other alternatives that will take us away from incineration, but passing a law that would mandate separation of food scraps would be a huge win in that effort, because then that would put us on a path that could potentially successfully make it so we're diverting up to 90% or up to 100, I should say, by the end of the decade, if we're able to expand as much as we need to ensure we're not reighing up on that contract we have with Wheelbrader coming up and at the end of 2029. So it's definitely something that we want to push for, and perhaps it's something that some of us can start spearheading, because I think it's a worthy policy. Susan? Did you have your hand up?
I know we can only control the households, but like you always say, the restaurants and the businesses, they really produce so much waste. And I think they have private haulers and all that. However, if you, like today, I happen to have a soup and salad at Barnes and Nobles in Eastchester. I don't know if Damon is still here. Terrible. They don't have any recycled for the forks. And I mean, it was, I was kind of surprised that they didn't have it. So I think so that's when people eat there, then they don't want to do it either at home. So it has to be like a loop. So if people see, like at the Botanical Garden, they have separate places for everything, and it's wonderful. And then people get the idea. So we need to reinforce both sides, households and businesses.
Absolutely. And Linda, I saw your hand with up.
I was just going to add with the Wheelbrader, another point is the toxic ash is then carted to Massachusetts,
Connecticut,
and other places. They don't even, and no one wants it. I mean, it's a terrible problem, that Wheelbrader.
Yeah, it's a
Absolutely.
fallacy that we don't have landfills. Like, we still have landfills. We just make sure that it's super duper concentrated, really, really toxic stuff that we're landfilling. And yeah, and definitely once we get the food waste and the organics out, it's of even landfills, the emissions and the greenhouse gas emissions from that are dropped dramatically. So it, again, like a win-win, just getting this stuff out of the waste stream entirely.
absolutely. Do we have any questions left or any last remaining comments? We are a little over time, but I want to make sure that while we have all these great folks on, folks get to ask their questions. All right, not seeing any. I just want to thank you all. I especially want to thank Kay, Anthony, Susan, and Linda for taking the time to be here tonight to speak about your experiences and for inspiring us all to maintain persistence and to continue our kind of unwavering effort to recruit others in this goal of expanding food scraps recycling across Westchester, moving us closer toward zero waste. So we really appreciate all your efforts. We appreciate you joining our calls, connecting with folks. I want to invite you to share your emails in the chat in case folks have any questions that they didn't get to ask tonight, so they can reach out to you, or if folks want to connect and bounce ideas off each other to find out how maybe you can get this started in your municipality. I invite you to do that all. But again, thank you all so much for making the time to be here tonight. This is being recorded, so we will send this out in a follow-up email in case you know any folks that may be interested in viewing this but couldn't make it tonight. Our next meeting will be taking place on November 8th. Our meetings typically take place on the second Wednesdays of the month at 7:30. So the next meeting will be taking place November 8th. And with that, I want to wish you all a very great night and hope to see you all next month. Thank you. Have a great evening, everyone. Bye.
All right, we'll hop on over to our other smaller one. Thanks so much, Kay. Very appreciated. See you tomorrow night.
Thanks, folks. Bye-bye.